So what do we know about A&M? Returning
I know that I'm very high on Marcel Reed this year at
Marcel
quarterback.
Reed returning. Inconsistent, but can he figure that out?
I think I think that he will this year.
I feel like the wide receivers are decent. I don't know them by name, but I know they were making highlight reel plays last year.
Well, they did get KC Concepcion from
Yes, they did.
NC
And that
State. That's
dude's
a big pickup.
he's a
That's the guy that
walking
we
highlight
talked.
reel.
That's the guy that we talked about, reminding us of Cordell Patterson for Tennessee. Just the kind of athlete that he is. That was a big pickup out of the portal. You got Le'Veon Moss returning at running back this year. Great running back there. I think I'm not going to say that he's going to be the number one running back in the SEC, but I think he's going to be a top 3 or 4 running back in the SEC this year, as long as he stays healthy. You got a very talented freshman in Kelshawn Johnson coming out this year. So they've got some dudes on this
Defense was
team.
solid.
Defense is always solid under Mike Elko. I mean, that's his calling card is defense. So I think that Texas A&M, they're kind of running under the radar this year. They're not. It's like
I think they are, but I think what sets them a little bit. I think they have some tough road games. And I think
I agree with you.
I think that may be, and we all know A&M. One, A&M back half the schedule tough. B, back half the schedule being 4 away games out of 6 could be tough, especially when 3 of them are probably going to be pretty hard. At least 3 or 4. I mean, honestly, I can see all 4 of them being kind of tough. Arkansas is probably the least, but I can see at LSU, at Missouri. You have a 3-game stretch with a bye week in between of back-to-back-to-back road games. That's going to be tough for A&M, and I think depending on how they handle that, it could be a great season or it could be another 8-4, 9-3 season where A&M Aggie fans are pretty disappointed, I think, at the end of the year. But I think for Mike Elko, it's still a building year, in my opinion. I mean, Marcel Reed is going to be coming back again next year for sure, unless NIL situations happen. But I think this is, I don't know. Notre Dame is the first big game I think that comes up. But overall, their schedule is tough, but A&M proved to be able to handle it last year. I mean, they were playing Texas last year for a spot in the SEC championship. So who knows? Could they get that done again this year? Michael, do you want to take the first crack at this thing or what?
Yeah, I'll go first with Texas A&M. I do think that Texas A&M, they start off the season with 2 wins going up against UTSA and Utah State. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Utah State starting off 2-0. That Notre Dame game in week 3. That game is at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame does not have a starting quarterback, by the way. Not yet.
They do not at the moment. They do return one of the best running backs in the nation. I cannot off the top of my head think of what his name is. Jeremiah Love. Yeah, Jeremiah Love returning. He was hurt a little bit in the playoffs last year, but still he showed out in the playoffs. Other than that Ohio State game where he was just really too injured to go through with a lot. That game is in South Bend. That's going to make it tough. I think I've got Texas A&M dropping this game against Notre Dame. Got a bye week before they go up against Auburn at home. They do get a win. I did it again.
Stop acting like me.
I know it. I'm the editor on this show, and I keep messing up. So they do get a win against Auburn before they turn around. They beat Mississippi State, starting off the season 4-1 before a game against Florida. I do think if this game was in the swamp, I kind of lean more towards Florida. But with this game being in College Station, I do think that Texas A&M will get a win in this game at Arkansas. I think Texas A&M goes on the road and they take care of business in this game. Give me a win there for Texas A&M. At LSU, you mentioned it. This is the second game in a 3-game road stand for Texas A&M. They do have a bye week coming up after this game. Not the easiest stretch, also not the toughest stretch that they just went through with that Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, Arkansas. But I do think that game in Death Valley, I do lean to LSU in that one. So give me LSU over Texas A&M for Texas A&M's second loss of the season. Coming off the bye week, though, I think Texas A&M is going to be hot and eager to finish this season off strong. They go on the road to get a win against Missouri. Let me make sure that's what I did. Yes. Win against Missouri. Yeah. South Carolina. This game is in College Station. I am very high on South Carolina this year, but we did South Carolina last week, and I just don't think at this point that South Carolina can go to College Station to pick up a win. I do think it's going to be a very close, competitive game, but I've got Texas A&M picking up a win against South Carolina. They get a win against Samford before the big game, the battle for Texas in the final game of the season. This is on a Friday night, going to Austin. And I think Texas A&M comes away with a win to end the season on the road. They finish off the season 10-2.
Hey, this might get them in the SEC championship.
I think that it's going to come down to last year
in the SEC.
Last year was supposed to be Texas A&M versus Texas for who's going to go to the SEC title game, but because of Texas A&M dropping a game the week before, I believe, was that to Arkansas that they dropped a game? They dropped a game that they shouldn't have the week before, and it led to, no matter what happened, Texas was going to get into the SEC title game. But I think this year that Texas A&M is going to get it done against Texas, finish off the season 10-2. So my ceiling and my floor for this team, I'm going to start off with the ceiling. Normally I would go, which is what I've done with every other team. Normally I would go through and I would say, yeah, I think head to head, Texas A&M can beat Notre Dame on the road. They can beat LSU on the road. So yeah, I'm going to go 12-0 right here. I do not see any team in the SEC this year, and really in the country, going 12-0 this season. Nope. So even though I think that they can beat both Notre Dame and LSU, I think that there is a loss somewhere on this schedule regardless, which is why I've got my ceiling for Texas A&M going 11-1 on the season. My floor for this team, I think you still beat Auburn, Mississippi State. I think you can drop the game to Florida, depending on what kind of season Florida is having at this point. I think that you still win on the road to Arkansas. You can drop that game to South Carolina. You can drop that game to Texas. Missouri, with that being a road game, I'll throw that in there as well. So you're looking at, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. You're looking at 6-6 for the absolute floor for this team this year. So I think that they make a bowl game either way. But I think 6-6 is the absolute worst case scenario for Texas A&M on the season. I don't know. I think the worst that they do would be 8-4. So if I'm going to go kind of like the way that you do, as far as, what I think they do in the season, I think 8-4 would be the lowest. But as far as teams that they can lose to, I'll go 6-6 as my floor. 11-1 the ceiling, but 10-2 is what I have Texas A&M going this year in Mike Elko's second year.
I like it. That's a lofty expectations for Mike Elko and for Texas A&M. When's the last time? And this is bad for podcasts because I don't have the answer, but I would love for you to maybe look it up as soon as you get done clearing the board. But when's the last time Texas A&M has won double digits wins in a season? Is it under Johnny Manziel? When's the last time they've won 10 games in a regular season?
In a regular season, it's a great question. Let me look that up.
Yeah, I mean they have, right? There's no way they have.
They have. I was gonna say double-digit wins. They got that in the COVID year, but we only played 10 regular season games that year. I do think they won the bowl game, so they finished off 10-1, but they didn't win. They went 9-1 in the regular season. Let's see.
Okay. All right. While you're looking that up, I'm gonna go ahead and say a dub over UTSA and a dub over Utah State. I don't think that's too out of the ordinary here. At Notre Dame, big time game for both programs, in my opinion. Big swing game for these programs. I am going to give the win to Texas A&M. I think they get it. I think they get it done. and they carry that into their first bye week, and then they host Auburn. And I don't know. I'm afraid that maybe the bye week hurts A&M here, even at home. And I am gonna say that they drop the game to Auburn as the first loss of the season with lofty expectation. I think after the Notre Dame win, they'll probably be up in the top 10 too. So and this will be a big win for Auburn too in their season and kind of help boost up Jackson Arnold and Hugh Freeze. Honestly, he needs the confidence as well. So I think this will be a big win for that program. But then you got Mississippi State. I'm pretty sure that's self-explanatory dub there. And then you got Florida, and you do host Florida. And I don't think, I don't know. I feel like the SEC is going to be weird. You're going to have teams beating teams that you would think there's no chance that a team gets beat by a team. But like you even seen it last year with Vanderbilt beating Alabama, Arkansas beating Tennessee, et cetera. LSU beating Ole Miss, Ole Miss beating Georgia. Like it just there's weird things that can happen, and I think this is one of the weirdest things, other than Auburn maybe. But I think Florida gets the win against A&M. And just real quick, you're probably thinking, "Oh, well, this can't be a great season for A&M," but I think it could still be okay because I do think they go to Arkansas and pick up the win there. Even though it's at Arkansas, it's going to be hard, but I think they can get it done. I think they're going to need to get it done and have that bounce back win. And then at LSU, I'm hearing too much positivity at LSU, so I'm kind of being a little bit more lofty on them than I really want to be. But at the end of the day, I still don't think they're going to get it done. But I think against at least A&M, I think LSU will get the win there. So I'm going to give A&M a loss. But then they go at Missouri. I think they get a big bounce back win. I think they go to South Carolina and get the big bounce back win. They go to Sanford and get a win. And this is where it's kind of like the opposite of traditional A&M teams, right? Where they start hot, kind of end cold. But I've got this A&M team kind of just a steady, consistent season, obviously. But at Texas to end the year, it'll be a big game, but not necessarily in the SEC standings, as they'll be 4-3 going into this game. So they're not really going to be playing for much in the SEC, maybe for an outside chance of probably not. They'll be 9-3 even if they beat Texas. But overall, I don't think it's going to matter. I think they're going to lose to Texas. I think A&M has yet another 8-4 year. And I think that's just who A&M, in my mind, until they have a program changing player again, I think A&M is just an 8-4 program. 9-3, you name it, kind of like in that area. I think that's just who A&M is. Now, obviously, I think their best case scenario with Texas, Notre Dame, LSU, Florida, and South Carolina on the schedule. I think their best case scenario is 9-3. I know that's a low best case, and I get that. But at the end of the day, I just don't see A&M right now with their pieces. I don't see them, especially with their road games. And then you get to come home, but great, at South Carolina and Lenore Sellers. Like, I don't know. I just don't feel like even that's a gimme game. I have them in a win here, but they could easily lose South Carolina. But overall, I think their best case is 9-3. I think they beat Auburn in that best case, but maybe they lose to Notre Dame, but beat Florida and LSU. I don't know. Either way, I see 3 losses, even in their best case. Their worst case gets a little ugly. They could lose to Notre Dame. They could lose to Arkansas. They could lose to Missouri and South Carolina. That's it's a 4-8 season. And I could absolutely see that. So worst case 4-8.
That's definitely a worst case right there.
I mean, but I mean, no, 4-8 is not accurate. Yeah, it is, because they're non-cons against Notre Dame. Because I'm like, they're going to beat Mississippi State. And then they're going to win their non-conference games other than Notre Dame. Yeah. So, 4-8. I mean, dude. I mean, maybe I'll go 5-7, give them the win over Auburn. But I don't know. I think worst case, if we're talking true worst case here, they go 4-8 with 1 win in the SEC over Mississippi State. And that's going to look like if Marcel Reed gets hurt against Notre Dame or something, and then it just kind of spirals from there. But overall, I've got A&M going 8-4. I'm not super high on them this year.
Yep. Fair enough, man. So Texas A&M, I'm a little bit higher on them than you are, but I think ultimately both of us can agree that Texas A&M is going to have a decent year this year, which they
Should.
most of the time do. And to answer your question about when the last time they won 10 regular season games, that was the very first year that they were in the SEC in 2012. They went 11-2 that season.
That was Johnny Manziel.
That was
Wasn't
Johnny
it?
Manziel.
Yeah, that was Johnny Manziel.
I think you're right. I cannot remember if that was Johnny Manziel or not, but you're probably right on that one. But yeah, that was the first year for Texas A&M in the SEC. That was Kevin Sumlin's first year at head coach. Since that time, Texas A&M record. Now they do not have. I take it back. They do have one losing record. Of course, that was Jimbo Fisher's next to last season. Should have been his last season, but since that time in 2012, Texas A&M 9-4, 8-5, 8-5, 8-5, 7-6, 9-4, 8-5, 9-1 in 2020, 8-4, 5-7 in 22, 7-6, 8-5, and then of course this year yet to be determined.
I'm telling you, that's just. I heard a lot of 8-5s. So I don't know. I just feel like that's who Texas A&M is, man. It would be a splash if they could beat Texas at Texas. Because I think that could ruin Texas dreams. I don't know what Texas is going to look like at the end of the year, but who knows? They could be playing spoiler, and then in that case, anything can happen. Who knows? Yeah. Me and Sean agree. He said 8-4, and then also says crazy stuff happens in Fayetteville. Wouldn't guarantee a win there. I'm not guaranteeing a win in any SEC game, in my opinion, this year.